It started on a quiet Wednesday evening. Wednesdays were my day off from teaching 6th grade English at Merriwick Elementary, and after 3 months in that old wooden classroom with leaky ceilings and 2 loud kids, I needed the silence. I was still adjusting to the small-town life. Merriwick wasn't like Boston. Here, the biggest news was when Old Man Callahan's cat went missing or when the diner added waffles to the menu. I moved to Merriwick to escape the noise, the loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who don't know your name. I thought the countryside would help me find some kind of peace. That afternoon, I packed a book, Stephen King's The Dead Zone, and a thermos of coffee, and headed for Lake Wren, just 15 minutes outside town. It was mid-September, the air already crisp. The lake had this strange stillness to it, the kind where even the birds seemed too shy to sing. The water looked like glass, flat, untouched. I found a dry patch of grass near the edge and settled in. Around 4 p.m., just as the sun dipped low and the sky took on that faint orange hue, I heard a splash. It was sharp, sudden, not like a fish jumping or a stick falling. This was big. I stood up fast, my heart immediately pounding. I saw a boy in the water. Small frame, blonde hair, maybe 10 years old. He was flailing his arms, kicking wildly, and his head kept disappearing beneath the surface. I shouted, "Hey, hold on." There was no one else around. No parents. No boats. Just me and the boy. I kicked off my sneakers and ran into the lake. The cold slapped my chest so hard I lost my breath for a second, but adrenaline pushed me forward. My limbs screamed from the shock, but I swam hard, straight toward the boy. He went under just before I reached him. I dove down, eyes open in the murky water. I saw a pale blur sinking, limp. I grabbed his wrist, wrapped my arm around his chest, and kicked toward the surface. We broke through. I coughed water out of my lungs, gasped for air, and dragged him to shore. He was light, too light, like a stuffed toy soaked in water. I laid him down. He coughed a few times and then slowly sat up. His pale blue eyes blinked at me. His lips quivered, and for a moment, he just stared. Then he smiled. "Thank you, mister," he said, in a voice that was barely louder than the wind. It sounded hollow, distant, like it came from the bottom of a well. "Are you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside him. He just stood. His clothes were soaked, but there was no panic, no shivering, no fear. He looked at me once more, tilted his head, and ran into the woods. I yelled after him, "Wait, are your parents around?" No answer. I ran a few steps after him, but he was fast, too fast. Within seconds, he vanished into the trees. I stood there, drenched and shaking, unsure if what just happened was even real. Back in my small house on Cedar Street, I couldn't shake the boy's face from my mind. His eyes had something ancient in them, something wrong, but I had saved him. I saw it, felt it. The next morning, I walked down to the general store. It was the kind of place that sold everything from nails to cinnamon buns. Martha, the elderly woman who ran it, was sweeping the front steps. "Mornin', Daniel," she said. "You look like you didn't sleep a wink." "I didn't," I said. "Hey, quick question. Do you know if anyone's reported a missing kid? Blonde hair, maybe 10 years old?" She stopped sweeping. "No one I heard of." "Why?" I told her everything. The splash, the rescue, the woods. As I spoke, her face changed. The color drained from her cheeks. Her lips tightened. "You sure he had blue eyes?" she asked. "Yeah, bright, pale, like glass." Without a word, she went inside and returned with a faded corkboard. It had old Polaroids, missing pet flyers, and yellowed newspaper clippings. She pulled one loose and handed it to me. "Look at this." The clipping was dated September 1985. "Boy drowns in Lake Wren, body never recovered." His name was Timothy Wiles. Age, 10. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Same exact description. I stared at the grainy photo of the boy. Same face. Same soft smile. "That's him," I whispered. "That's the boy I pulled out." Martha put a hand on my arm. "Timothy's been dead nearly 40 years. That night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. My house is small, quiet, one of those creaky old cottages with wooden floors that remember every step. But these weren't my footsteps. They were too light, like bare feet, and they were inside. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. The hallway was dark, still, but then I heard it again. Slap, 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 bare feet on hardwood. I got out of bed and grabbed the flashlight I kept by the nightstand. I didn't own a gun. I never needed one, but in that moment, I wished I had. I crept into the hallway. The air was cold, ice cold, My breath fogged up in front of me, and the floor chilled my feet. I clicked on the flashlight and swept it across the hallway. Empty, but the steps had stopped, as if whoever or whatever had been walking knew I was listening. I backed into my room, closed the door, and locked it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I found the front door wide open. Not just unlocked, open. I always locked it. Always. Living alone does that to a man. But there it was, gently swaying in the early morning breeze. I looked around the room. Nothing was missing. Nothing was moved. Just that cold breath of air, slithering in through the crack. I shut it, locked it, and bolted it. Twice. But that night, it happened again. I woke up around 3 a.m., sweating. The house was silent, until I heard the soft groan of the hinges. Creak. I shot out of bed. This time, I took the flashlight and a kitchen knife. I crept down the hall, each step slow and deliberate. There was the door. Open again. This time, wider. And on the floor, just inside the doorway, were wet footprints. Small, bare, leading into the house. They stopped right at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I returned to the general store. Martha saw my face and knew something was wrong. He was in my house, I said. Timothy. Or whatever he is now. She didn't even blink. He's attached to you. Why? I asked. She hesitated. Then she walked behind the counter and pulled out a dusty town history book. She flipped through it until she stopped at a photo of a small cemetery near the lake. Timothy Wiles was never buried, she said. They never found his body. That lake kept it. So what do I do? You need to give him peace. You brought him out of the lake. You invited him back. Now you have to help him move on. I asked how. Return him, she whispered. Or finish what the lake never could. That evening, I went back to Lake Wren. I brought everything. A flashlight, a bottle of whiskey, and Timothy's photo I had copied from the clipping. I stood at the edge and called out, Timothy. The lake didn't answer, but the wind picked up. The trees swayed, and from the woods he emerged, soaking wet. Just as I remembered, he walked toward me, smiling. That same haunting, innocent smile. I followed you home, he said. You saved me. I nodded, heart hammering. But I'm still drowning. His voice was empty, hollow. The same tone as when he first thanked me. I want to go back, he said. I stepped aside. He walked past me onto the water, not onto. The lake accepted him like he was part of it. He turned once, smiled again. Thank you, mister. And then he slowly sank beneath the surface without a splash. The lake went still again, like nothing had ever happened. I thought it was over. The door stopped opening. The footprints vanished. The dreams faded. But then, 3 nights later, I came home from work and saw a puddle in the hallway. A wet trail leading from the front door to the stairs. I froze. On the wall above the puddle, written in dripping water, were 4 words. You followed me first.